Time for a mini review. Beany Bopper was a 1982 release by 20th Century Fox for the Atari 2600. In Beany Bopper, you play as a purple eyeball trying to capture beanies that are bouncing around a scrolling screen. You can't just move and grab them though. Beanies need to be stunned before they can be captured. Do this by firing your stun gun with the button. Your stun gun has two settings, either a long-range shot by pressing it once, or a short-range rapid fire by holding the button down. Once you stun a beanie, just move your eyeball over it to complete the capture. In addition to the beanies, there are other objects that will drop down the screen. They're bonus objects and are safe to touch. You don't need to stun them, but if you do, they will slow down. Beany Bopper is an incredibly simple game, but not bad at all and can become addictive. Worth a play, 7 out of 10. Mini review. Entombed was a 1983 release by US Games for the Atari 2600. In Entombed, you play as an archaeologist who has fallen into a catacomb of zombies, and all you can do is run. The screen scrolls and you have to navigate your way through paths, avoiding zombies and trying not to get stuck. If you do end up in a dead end, you can press a button to use a wall break. Wall breaks will clear a path or place a wall for you to get out of an otherwise hopeless situation, but they're a limited resource, so use them wisely. You can get more wall breaks by grabbing the moving blocks in the maze. Keep running until you finally lose all your lives from touching enemies or getting pushed off the screen at the top. Entombed isn't bad, but is at its best in its two-player competitive or co-op play. 6 out of 10. Mini review. Lost Luggage was a 1982 release by Apollo for the Atari 2600. In Lost Luggage, you play in the baggage claim area of an airport, trying to catch suitcases flying off a carousel. Moving with the joystick, depending on your difficulty level, you'll play as one or two people scrambling to catch everything that flies your way before it hits the bottom or sides of the playfield. If you miss a bag, all the luggage on the screen bursts open and you lose a life. In some game options, there are black terrorist bags. If you miss one of these, they explode and it's instant game over. There's also a two-player mode where the second player gets to decide where the bags fly to. Lost Luggage isn't a bad game and is worth a play, but it's missing a little something to take it to the next level. 6 out of 10. It's a mini review. Pete Rose Baseball was a 1988 release by Absolute Entertainment for the Atari 2600. Graphically impressive, the field is broken up into multiple sections that reveal themselves based on where the ball is in play. When batting, move with the joystick and time your swings with a button. If you connect, forced runners will run automatically, and combinations of joystick and button inputs guide the rest of your runners. When fielding, maneuver and pitch with joystick inputs. Then, based on where the ball is hit, press the button and use your joystick to select a player. Once you've picked up the ball, once again use the button and joystick direction to throw to a base. Each fielder is locked to a certain area on the screen though, so selecting the right one to be able to get to the ball is vital. Although the titular Pete Rose is nowhere to be seen in this game, I can confidently say that this is the only baseball game on the system that actually feels like real baseball. 7 out of 10. Mini review. Polaris was a 1983 release by Tiger Vision for the Atari 2600. In Polaris, you play as a submarine defending yourself from a relentless attack of enemy units across two screens. On the first screen, move your sub with a joystick to avoid enemy submarines, airplanes, and sometimes destroyers. Press the button to fire missiles out of the water to hit the opponents above. You can only have one missile on screen at once, so make sure you time your shots well. Destroying all the planes on this screen, you advance to a travel level where you have to navigate through a channel that will have mines defending it. Here, pressing the button fires a torpedo that you can use to destroy the mines. Successfully passing this will get you to another battle screen, and you loop through these two playfields from there. Polaris seems pretty easy at first, but the difficulty ramps up quickly, in a good way. It's a solid addition to any 2600 library. 7 out of 10. Mini review. Revenge of the Beefsteak Tomatoes was a 1983 release by 20th Century Fox for the Atari 2600. In Revenge of the Beefsteak Tomatoes, your job is to stop tomato plants from taking over by building 3 walls over them. Move your tomato sprayer around the playfield to capture and place bricks, dodging cherry tomatoes and bombs while you do it. You do this by shooting the brick that appears at the top of the screen, and then shooting again to place it below. Make sure you don't shoot again in between, otherwise you'll lose the brick. Each layer of wall has a different color as well, and you need to match the bricks that you catch to the right layer. As you complete each wall layer, brick-breaking plants appear, and you have to shoot them quick, otherwise the brick that they're growing on will disappear. Build all 3 walls to win, and move on to do it all over again, but harder. I like the idea of this game, but I'm not the biggest fan of its execution. Not a bad game, just not really for me. 6 out of 10. Mini Review. Shark Attack was a 1982 release by Apollo for the Atari 2600. In Shark Attack, you play as a diver hunting for diamonds underwater while being relentlessly attacked by a shark. Swim around in a maze of seaweed collecting diamonds and then returning them to the shark cage in the center. There are 2 game modes, Gobble and Pick 'em Up. In Gobble, you can collect as many diamonds as you like, but they won't count towards your points until you deposit them in the cage. In Pick Up, you can only grab 1 diamond at a time. In the 4 corners, there are mystery caves that will transport you to a different cave. It's possible to disturb the Loch Ness Monster, and if you do, Nessie will chase you until you lead her back to a cave. One of a long line of Pac-Man-style maze games, this one has a unique feel and is fun enough for a play now and then. 6 out of 10. It's a mini review! Shootin Gallery was a 1983 release by Imagic for the Atari 2600. A shooter meant to replicate shooting galleries that you would find at the fair in days of old, Shootin Gallery has you as a pellet gun at the bottom of the screen, shooting a variety of objects for points. On and beside the clock at the top of the screen are bars that indicate how many shots you have left. And you can get more shots every 20,000 points based on how many objects on the bottom row you hit. Shooting certain objects will make others appear on the screen, and shooting things in a certain order will give you more points. One such thing is the train. If you shoot the caboose and boxcars before the engine, you'll get a lot more points than if you shoot the engine first. The key is to use your ammo wisely, and maximize the extra shots you earn in order to keep playing. Consultation with the manual is recommended. Shootin Gallery isn't really my kind of game, but so far as this genre goes, it's a great one. 7 out of 10. It's a mini review! Space Jockey was a 1982 release by US Games for the Atari 2600. The first game designed by Gary Kitchen, Space Jockey was a 2K cartridge at a time when most games were 4K, and it really shows. You play as a flying saucer flying endlessly to the right, using the fire button on your joystick to destroy incoming planes, helicopters, hot air balloons, and tanks. You can only move vertically, but there are game modes that will allow you to move sideways as well, although there's no real purpose to doing so. Space Jockey is very basic and feels pretty empty in its gameplay. Not bad per se, but certainly not good. 3 out of 10. It's a mini review! Submarine Commander was a 1982 release by Sears Telegames for the Atari 2600. One of the few games that Atari made for exclusive release by Sears, you pilot a submarine defending your country from a fleet of ships. Viewing the playfield through a periscope, at the bottom of the screen you have a radar and your fuel meter. There's also a green indicator as to which of your torpedo tubes will fire next. There's a gauge at the top that will monitor the heat of your engine that goes up for every action you take. There are 3 types of ships you'll encounter: tankers, which take 2 hits, and destroyers and PT boats, which each take 1 hit. Depending on the difficulty level, ships will fire back with depth charges which need to be avoided. Your game ends when you run out of fuel or are destroyed. Sink as many ships as you can before that happens. While I love the concept, the biggest issue here is a limited view from your periscope, where you can be firing at something on the horizon and not see your shots because you hit a ship closer to you without even knowing it. Not a bad game, but kind of frustrating. 4 out of 10. Time for a mini review! Tutankham was a 1983 release by Parker Brothers for the Atari 2600. A port of the popular arcade game, Tutankham pits you as an adventurer seeking treasure in ancient Egyptian tombs. Travel from top to bottom, a huge departure from the original, grabbing keys and opening doors in order to get the treasure at the end of each level. In each stage there are monster generators that will emit creatures that need to be avoided or shot, but you can only shoot horizontally. If you're stuck, you can activate a laser flash by holding the button and pressing up. There are also teleporters that will help you move through each maze when you reach a dead end. Tutankham is a competent game, but suffers from the same issue as Pac-Man on the 2600 in that it's a very poor port. If you really want to play a great version, Champ Games just released a port that is fantastic. As for this one, 4 out of 10. Time for a mini review. Video Reflex was a 1983 release by Exis Corporation for the Atari 2600. Designed to be played with a unique footpad controller, Video Reflex gets you to stomp on a bug that moves around the screen. The playfield is divided into 5 colored sections that correspond to colors on the gamepad. Press the right section with your foot and you stomp on the bug, ready to move on to the next. Later in the game, there are items that you don't want to squish, and eventually the colors start moving around. This game is close to impossible without the gamepad it came with, but I imagine if I had it, it would be fun for a little bit. Certainly unique for the 2600. 4 out of 10. It's a mini review! Wabbit was a 1982 release by Apollo for the Atari 2600. The first console game with a named playable female character on screen, you play as Billy Sue trying to save your crop of carrots from a horde of hungry rabbits. A basic shooter, you throw rotten eggs at the rabbits while they dart in and out of their burrows. In a unique twist though, you're actually competing against them for points. For each rabbit you hit, you get points, but for each carrot the rabbits snag, they get points. The game ends when either you get 1300 points or the rabbits get 100. Wabbit is simple, but frustrating, as especially when the game gets faster, you just press the fire button and hope for the best, ending up just guarding the last carrot. I don't like this one at all. 3 out of 10. Mini review. Word Zapper was a 1982 release by US Games for the Atari 2600. An educational game, in Word Zapper you pilot a ship whose job it is to spell words within a time limit while shooting and dodging asteroids. When starting, a word or jumbled letters will appear at the bottom of the screen. Then it'll be your job to spell out that word by shooting the scrolling letters up top as quickly as you can. While you try and do this, different types of asteroids will get in your way. Some will simply push you around, making spelling more difficult, while others will mix up the letters or even end your game. Thankfully, shooting the wrong letters won't make you start over again. It'll just cost you some time. Once you spell the word, provided you've shot enough asteroids, a completion character will show up in the scroll at the top. Shoot it to complete the word and get another one. The goal being to spell 3 words before the timer runs out. Word Zapper is simple, but surprisingly fun for an educational game. Worth playing for sure. 6 out of 10.